there was so much in front of me. I don't think it made sense on a career sense. But when speaking about with my wife, we said to ourselves, in 40 years from now, what are we going to regret more? And we felt like missing out on this opportunity for us and our family and to get back to the Jewish people was too much for us to miss out. And we didn't think the downside was catastrophic. And we just had faith that Baruch Hashem and Mir Hashem, we'd be able to figure it out and work it out.
Before I came on Shlichut, I'd already done 4 or 5 rounds of Miluim, and coming on Shlichut, and I want to just add that it was the biggest salute of my life to be able to be in the army in this time and protecting Am Yisrael over the past 2.5 years has been such an unbelievable salute. I will say that I went purely for the sake of protecting Am Yisrael, but there is a lot of positive that comes to the shlichut when you go to miluim on shlichut. I will say that someone in the shul that I'm pretty involved in here told me that this was actually the first time in 2.5 years, that he felt a real connection to what was going on in Israel. He said, this is the first time I actually knew someone that was fighting in the war.
Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to Stark Tank. Stark Tank is a podcast about the challenges and opportunities of being a mentor in the workforce. This week, we are joined by 2 friends of mine, Shlomo Ashkanazy and Ami Younger. Both started their career in the tech world and both pressed pause to go do something else, which we're going to get to in a second. So Shlomo, Ami, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Yaakov.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So before we get into the conversation, a quick personal request to please go and hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us grow the show and reach new listeners. So without any further ado, Shlomo is currently the co-director of JLIC at WashU. Ami Younger is the COO of Mizrachi Canada, meaning both of them left their homes in Eretz Yisrael, their jobs in the tech world, to go do shlichut for the Jewish people. So Shlomo, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to the tech world? And then Ami, I want to hear how you decided to start your career as well.
Great. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I went to high school at the Skokie Yeshiva and then went for my gap year to Yeshiva Kotel. I kind of always had in mind that my home and the place I wanted to live was Israel. Grew up in a very Zionistic home. After 1 year at Yeshiva Kotel, decided to make Aliyah and did the Hesder program at Hakotel. When I was finishing Hakotel, I also enrolled in Mizrachi Smicha, finished Mizrachi Smicha. At the same time, I was also working at Esha Torah and getting my degree at Machon Lev in business. And my last year at Machon Lev, after finishing Smicha, I got a job at Our Crowd, a venture capital fund in Yerushalayim, very much thanks to Ami Younger and someone else who I won't mention, maybe who has relations to the host, and got a job there. And Baruch Hashem was there for about 1.5 years until we decided to go on Shlichut.
Yaakov, thank you so much for having me, and I'm very humbled to be on this podcast. I've looked through and listened to many of the previous episodes, and many of my rebbeim or mentors in the tech world or business world are prior guests, and it is very humbling for me to be part of that. So I'd say a lot of this podcast might sound very similar to Shlomo's because we do actually have a very similar background, but I grew up in Montreal to a amazing religious Zionist family. I was very involved in my shul, my school, and my local Bnei Akiva. And I also went to Yeshiva HaKotel after I graduated high school. I had no plans at that time to stay, but after being exposed to what I believe to be such a emistic, real way of expressing all the values that I learned of Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and Torah Yisrael, I decided to stay another year in Yeshiva HaKotel, ultimately to draft into the army and serve as a combat engineer in Handasa Kravit through the HaKotel's Hesder program. And I really was exposed to just so many amazing people who were doing amazing things for Am Yisrael, people who worked in the chinuch world, people who worked in the business world, and I always had that in my mind going forward. So after I finished Hesder, I studied economics and business management in Bar Ilan. And at the same time, while I was studying, I was always involved in many informal things like teaching or community initiatives. And I ran a gap year program called MTA for South Africans and Australians through World Bnei Akiva. And all those things were extremely meaningful to me. And like Shlomo, after I graduated, and I will mention by name, but someone who's very dear to the 3 of us gave me an opportunity to work your father, Yaakov, Josh Wolf, gave me an opportunity to work directly for him, which was an amazing opportunity to work in the office of the COO, and I really grew in that role. And I think I'll speak on behalf of Shlomo myself. Our crowd really was a natural, like moving from our crowd to Shlichut was actually a very natural transition because of how Shlichut oriented our crowd really was. And anytime John Medved spoke at any company meeting, it was the goal of this company is to be mitaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. Like we're doing here is doing God's work and bringing investments to further advance the state of Israel, people in Israel. It's a very value driven company, and I was able to be part of that firsthand. It was amazing how many groups came in through our doors that were how many missions from across the world that were interested in our story, in the Jewish people's story, in our crowd story, and in Israel's story. So that was really where I started off my career, but it was always mission and value focused, and I think that kind of led to the next step.
So you guys were both sort of focused on being B'nai Torah and being in the workforce and sort of chinuch and smicha and programs. So when you were in our crowd, like was the shlichut, like, or like the idea of leaving the tech world completely for a time, something that you considered often or had on your horizons? Where did shlichut come into the picture? And then was it scary to take that jump away from the normal career path and then to go far away in a very different setting?
I would say for me, shlichut was maybe a dream. I don't know if I saw myself in formal education or really even in a full-time informal education role in Israel, partly because my Hebrew has pretty big accent and I was self-conscious about that, or for a plethora of other reasons, maybe culturally or financially. There were major concerns about doing education in Israel or giving back to the Jewish people in that way. And that was something that was a little bit sad for me because I really wanted and really felt like I had something to give. And I felt that maybe my co-hosts were better utilized in America. But I wanted to live in Israel, and I think Israel is a place for the Jewish people, and that's where I wanted to raise my family, and that's where I wanted to build a family. That's where I wanted to grow in my individual yadas. So I kind of said, if it ever comes up that I marry the right person, things kind of fall in line, it'd be something that I would be open to. Baruch Hashem, I married an amazing woman, and she was open to the idea when we were dating. And about a year after we got married, we were expecting our first child, but we went and approached the OU and said we would like to start, be the founding couple at WashU and kind of build this program out. And they were receptive to it. However, even with that all being said, I was specifically very concerned about leaving. I think I even spoke to Ami about it and very concerned about career-wise, because again, I want to move back to Israel and I don't know if Israel is the right place for me in terms of formal or informal education. And I really think tech or the business world is that place for me. And I'm leaving it and I'm taking a pause and I'm not doing the classic linear route, which is also very much me. I'm pretty type A. So that was really scary for me and something that I'm still worried about to this day. But Mir Hashem, everything will work out for the best.
So I think to frame this question, I think it's actually pretty interesting that here in Chutz La'aretz we're reading Parshat Shlach this coming Shabbos, and obviously Eretz Yisrael is a pretty central theme in most of the Torah and most of Sefer Bamidbar. But obviously Shlach is the most appropriate parsha about talking about sending out people to talk about the goodness of Israel. And I really feel responsibility from Kalev and Yoshua to be able to look at Eretz Yisrael despite the challenges, despite what everyone is hearing in the news and how hard it is and the wars and everything, and to just be able to go out and say Tova Eretz Me'od Me'od. And I felt that there is a bit of a lacking in that language. And I think especially post October 7th and the way people are perceiving Eretz Yisrael, I definitely felt more of a responsibility to help share that message. I will say that in that context, though, shlichut is not something that I was actively pursuing. I was pretty satisfied in my job in our crowd. I just moved to a new community in a new house that we just built. It's not something that we were actively looking for. And my wife actually is the assistant director of Camp Mosheva in Canada, Camp Mosheva in Ismore. And we really felt that was our shlichut. Like we were able to kind of, let's say, get the best of both worlds and be able to work in the professional world during the year and remotely in the summer, and then be able to make our impact in camp in the summer, but really after October 7th, and specifically after one of my rounds of Miluim, my Rebbe and my mentor, Rabbi Ilan Mazer, who is my boss in Mizrachi Canada, approached me with this opportunity. Rabbi Mazer Ilan has been doing an amazing job growing Mizrachi Canada, and it has really grown exponentially over the past few years. And he said that there's a real opportunity to continue scaling this organization and keep building, keep doing more. And I need a partner in this. And he really made me feel as if this was the right position for me and our family, given our context of how well we knew the community, my background in both informal education, formal education, and the professional world. So it really felt like it was an opportunity that was right for me in the next step in my career. I personally don't think I would have left for a, let's call it a more standard shlichut role. Again, I don't think there is a standard shlichut role, but of being a teacher in a high school or an assistant rabbi in a community, which I think are amazing things. And halavai, we can get more people to come on shlichut like that. That just wasn't my own career trajectory that I was looking for. So this specific role at this specific time came up, and I thought that I felt that I was the right person to step into those shoes, and that's why ultimately we were able to make that decision to come on shlichut.
I want to go deeper on that. I really like that framing of the whole issue. And, you guys both mentioned that you came from very proud Zionist homes, and I also did. But, within America, so obviously the Zionist discourse is varied, and within maybe Torah communities, Shomer Torah communities, it's varied. Within liberal communities, it's varied, right? There's a lot of different flavors of Zionism. So I'm wondering how you've experienced this whole world of American Zionism now that you've sort of come full circle in a way from growing up in Chutz La'aretz with Zionism, making Aliyah, coming back. Obviously, the times have changed. You've changed. Everything has changed. But I'm wondering how you have experienced that particular angle on the whole experience.
I will say that I'm pretty fortunate to be doing shlichut in a pretty Zionist place. Canada is a very. I'm working in a pretty religious Zionist atmosphere. The shuls we work in, the school we work in, are all pretty religious Zionist, and everyone is a proud Jew and a proud Zionist. But I will say, especially this year, and this since I've been here, and maybe beyond since October 7th, and the trajectory in Canada, it has become increasingly more difficult to be a proud public Zionist. The anti-Semites are definitely trying to divorce people's pride for Israel from their Jewish identity to some success, and they're definitely, people are less willing to proudly display their Israeli flag out of concern that something might happen to their car or to their home, and that leads into the more you suppress something, the less it becomes like the most important thing to you. Not that the importance goes down. So I think part of what we've been doing here has been able to express that pride, create events like Yom Ha'atzmaut, which is an overwhelming success, which gets so much of the community to come out, and other touch points that really are able to create Jewish pride, Israeli pride. And I think the other thing that we bring to the table is the real connection, the person who's experienced it, the people who you're able to have these conversations about what things are actually like or what things are actually happening there as opposed to what you're reading in the news.
Yeah, so a little bit similar to Ami, but I would say being on a college campus is definitely a little bit more broad. We have students coming from all over America, from different communities, from different levels of observance, no observance, and the relationship to Israel and Religious Zionism is all very different. However, I didn't see this community pre-Simchas Torah, pre-October 7th. I only saw it after. And I would say that generally everyone's been on board with trying to figure out how to connect more to Eretz Israel, connect more to the state of Israel in a real serious way. I do think it was a wake-up call for a lot of students on our campus, at least. That's what I can speak to. And it's been beautiful to see students from secular backgrounds to more classic non-Orthodox backgrounds kind of come together and coalesce over this religious aspect. And it's been a really beautiful thing to see. Our first day on campus was October 9th. 2023, and students from all backgrounds of Yadus, all backgrounds of religiosity, all backgrounds of education came together and did a vigil in the middle of campus, and that was beautiful and all run by students. So I would say, yes, definitely broad, definitely coming from different perspectives politically. Definitely, I would say college campus population can tend to be a little bit more liberal, even on the student side, which sometimes can be conflated with being more antagonistic towards Israel, but I don't know if that definitely wasn't the case here. So I was happily surprised, if you could say even surprised. I don't even know if I had any expectation. I think I was kind of just in a daze from everything that was going on. But Baruch Hashem, our students really came together in a real show of Afdas, and that has continued to today. something that I'm very proud to say that I was a part of, or at least saw from afar.
This is a question specific at Shlomo being on a campus. I never really thought of it this way as you were speaking, but like, there are students and you're sort of one of the, I don't know if you can tell me if there are other Jewish groups, Chabad or likewise, but basically you are the home for the Jewish community. You are one of the sources of strength and stability, but right, it's within a campus setting. There isn't anything else, right? It's not like Ami, who's in a community and lives within a context of the community. You are the community, and it almost sounds like a little bit lonely the way you, I don't know, maybe between the lines I was hearing that. Is that something that you experienced?
Baruch Hashem, we have amazing partners on campus. Hillel and Chabad are both very vibrant. And by the way, it's not a davar yadua, it's not a given that both organizations were very, very pro-Israel and really stepped up heroically post-October 7th. So no, I definitely wasn't alone. And again, the students definitely took, again, we got there October 9th. We mamish landed in St. Louis. We had not seen our house yet, October 9th, 2023. So the community was rocked, the Jewish world was rocked, and Hillel, Chabad, and our student leaders and our student population really stepped up. So definitely not alone. Definitely maybe alone in other ways, but definitely not alone in this sense that I really do think the Jewish population on campus as a whole, I wouldn't say that as every single person, but as a general rule, really stepped up, especially in the immediacy of it. But even to today, Baruch Hashem, I've been very lucky to, again, be a part of it or at least to see it from afar.
And I mean, maybe just one question specifically about your experience in Toronto is that I obviously know that realities on the ground and realities in the news are always different, but there has been reporting that Canada is experiencing a lot worse of a spike in anti-Semitism than America. So I'm wondering how you've sort of experienced that. You alluded to before. I wonder if you tell us a little bit more about what things are actually like. What is day-to-day life like? Is it something that have you experienced sort of firsthand encounters?
It is definitely something that is part of the day-to-day life here. I would say for most people, their day-to-day life is uninterrupted, but there are many circumstances where schools, institutions are all paying so many more thousands of dollars on security. We are not allowed to publicize flyers with locations on them until 10 minutes before the event. And there's a lot of intimidation factors that are going on here because people really are trying to disrupt Jewish life here, people's connections to Israel here. There's been protests at many events. I will say that as a scare tactic, the shul, which is a 3-minute walk from where I live, about 2 months ago, they shot bullets through the window. Thank God no one was there, but it's something that happened to our shul, 2 other shuls. So it really is part of the reality here, part of the situation in all schools, camps, institutions are instead of being able to focus on how much good we can do, we're trying to focus on security, which is a big challenge. I will say people are nervous to fly an Israeli flag on their car window or to do things of that nature. People are not posting on social media if they have a child serving in the IDF, and things that would have otherwise caused great pride are now being made to be a great sense of shame. And when things are not being able to be expressed as a great sense of pride, then those values are kind of suppressed, and it's something that we're not able to share as widely. So it definitely is a challenge. We're navigating it, and we are trying our best to ensure that sense of pride, even though it's very hardly being tried to be suppressed.
Very interesting. I want to transition to ask you guys about how you've leveraged your skills from the tech world to your shlichut. I want to start with Ami. I'd love to explain a little bit more what you actually were doing in my father's office, because I don't know, a lot of stuff goes on there. So I just to clarify sort of what the main skills that you were applying there, B, how they were applied to your shlichut, and C, specifically for you. You messaged me before that you're the COO of Mizrachi Canada, which is an interesting job title to use. You're a shaliach. You don't refer yourself as the assistant rabbi or the rabbi of the shul or whatever, or the educator. I don't know. They're all different titles for shlichim. So I'm curious what's behind that title, and is it really an executive like role?
Okay, so I will say that my job at our crowd has actually very much lined me up for this position, and the dynamics of the way things worked in our crowd, and specifically me working for your father, John Medved is definitely the visionary of the company, and he has the most unbelievable ideas, and he has the most unbelievable ideas at the most rapid pace possible. So your dad's job was to be his filter and kind of turn vision into reality. And I'm fortunate to have a similar dynamic with my boss and CEO, Rabbi Elon Mazer, who is an incredible visionary. He's also a really good executor, but he's an incredible visionary that is just trying to conquer the world and do more and do more and do everything possible. And my job is kind of to take that and to bring some of those ideas into, translate them into reality, which are definitely skills that I've learned from your father. And it's working on structure and frameworks and which things actually work, and setting KPIs and navigating HR issues around division. So these are all different things that I've been tasked to do in Mizrachi. And, I think it's just like it's important in the business world, it's important in the klal work, right? If you have klal work is all about vision, and it's all about trying to impact as many people as possible. But if you don't have the right tools or infrastructure to be able to do that, then a lot of it just gets missed. People get hurt along the way. So my goal is to try as much as I can to create the infrastructure to be able to achieve the many amazing dreams that Elon has.
Amazing. And maybe for you, Shlomo, you could even, go all the way back. You alluded to your early beginnings in Aish, which I'm sure, led you to our crowd, to the SDR role that you were in, and then to your role now, which I'm assuming is going to rely some of those great people skills, obviously fundraising skills as well. So maybe take us through that journey from your perspective.
Yeah, I feel really strongly that I think part of what drew us to start WashU and be the founding couple was that entrepreneurial spirit and all that comes with it. And I do think there's a lot of overlap between the nonprofit world and the for-profit world in many ways. So for instance, understanding who your customer is understanding who your students are. And you can't just go and pitch any specific project. You have to know kind of what you're pitching. In terms of fundraising, obviously that there's a sales component to that as well. You have to understand your CAC, but your CAC might be, as opposed to dollars, it might be time spent, or it also might be fundraising dollars as well. You have to know your barriers of entry. You have to know your competition, right? You're competing on campus, not just with religious things. You're competing with sports games. You're competing with class. You're competing with career. You're competing with whatever else you want to talk about. So I do think there's a lot of overlap between starting and being involved in non-for-profit and working in a for-profit. It's something that I think I see on a daily day, that I'm using skills that I learned from people like Ami, people like your dad, people like John Medved, Benjamin Miller, Ali, Mayor Feuerstein, a bunch of different people who I learned from our crowd. And I see myself using those skills daily. And I'm excited for when that time comes to hopefully be able to use the skills that I also gained from starting something and building something back into the business world when time comes. But it definitely has overlap. And I do think that in general, if I can be so blunt to say that generally, I think not-for-profits sometimes need to be run more like businesses. And I think there's a lot to gain from sometimes businesses need to be run more like not-for-profit sometimes. And I think there's definitely what to share in both worlds for sure.
Interesting. And, your journey you mentioned before, you're now sort of on the entrepreneurial track, starting something very, very new and very, very fresh. And you sort of alluded to the fact that that's sort of building you up. But I guess, how do you guys sort of see the next steps, anticipate the next steps? Is something sort of like on your mind that you're kind of like thinking of how to optimize for that, or you're all in on your shlichut and just relying on Kadosh Baruch Hu that you're going to be able to come back and transition smoothly? I'm sure it's not an easy topic and not an easy question, but you guys both are, Mizrachi, I'm going to be back in Eretz Yisrael and we're going to need to do something then. So I'm wondering, just broadly speaking, how you are thinking about that transition. Shlomo, we can start with you.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's on my mind, but not something that I've been pursuing with kavana. I would say I've been putting all my energy into my job here. It is a 24/7 job. When you're a rabbi of a community, it's 24/7, 365. You always have to be available and ready. So it's not something that I've been pursuing, I would say, with kavana, but it's obviously something that's been in the back of my mind. So to answer your question, the answer is it's both. I just have trust that it's going to work out. Kadosh Baruch Hu hopefully realizes that we as a family made somewhat of a sacrifice to come to Israel, so to leave Israel, to leave Eretz Israel, to be part of this job. But at the same time, so hopefully he sees that and will help us, Mirz Hashem. But at the same time, is also we have to do your shtadlus a little bit. So it's not like it's not in my mind. It's not like I haven't tried to spend summers networking or doing certain jobs that might help me and my resume. But I definitely think it's a mixture of both. But definitely has not taken away from anything I'm doing here. And if it did, it would be pretty obvious, I think, hopefully from our students or our families that we're involved with. If you're not 100% in it, I think they would be able to tell.
On my end, Mizrachi Canada is actually a very Israel-focused organization also. Meaning we do a ton of programming and events and community work here. And we also support many, many different projects in Israel. And I think part of my own personal goal is to make this work out long term, that I'll be able to, once my shlichut is done, to transition back to Israel and continue working for this organization, continue on the Israel side, continuing to make the impact that we're already making. And if that for some reason doesn't work out, I do think that most of the skills and things that I'm working on here are very relatable and they're transferable to other operational type roles. So as Shlomo said, I'm definitely hoping that I'll get some help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I'm also laying the groundwork that hopefully I'll be able to continue and transition back to Israel and continue with this job or a similar job.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that it's a very interesting, how you guys say that, and I want to sort of share something that I personally think about from time to time is that you guys are around my age, and we all sort of were starting our careers when the pandemic hit, and the world. I mean, that and along with a lot of other things has really shifted the world of work. For me, I was really like starting to plan my career when the pandemic came, and sort of this notion of like a non-linear career path has entered more into lexicon due to a number of factors. I don't know. To me, I sort of connected with the pandemic, but I'm sure there's many other reasons why that's true as well. So I'm wondering, is that like something that you thought about and like relaxed you? Have you seen other people maybe in similar journeys that are able to sort of take the path less traveled but still make it work? That's something that you were that you've seen and that you would maybe I want to clarify why I'm going back to this point, which is that a lot of people out there, a lot of listeners, and a lot of them maybe have Torah dreams and opportunities that come up. But it could be that they're scared. They're on a certain track and they want to go from this level to that level, and they want to sort of take the linear path. But you guys are on a different track. So I'm wondering if you guys want to speak to that point. I'll start with you.
Okay. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the master of the person who succeeded in the path less traveled is your dad, Josh Wolf, and he definitely was a mentor of ours, both of us, in that respect. And I do think that a lot of the skills that people pick up in klal work and nonprofit work is very translatable back to the tech world. I have seen it there, and I've seen it in other examples also of people who've been able to make a real impact and then are very sought after for the translatable skills like communication skills or planning skills or other skills that are relevant. So that it definitely is a concern. And I see friends that have just built their linear careers and have been very successful. And sometimes I'm like, why didn't I just go that way? But I also have enjoyed every step of the way that I've taken so far, and I believe I'm also doing the correct hishtadlus, and I hope it continues to work out.
Yeah, I would say for me, I don't think COVID had anything to do with it. I met my wife because of COVID. She was supposed to take a linear path, and because of COVID, came to Israel, and we got married, which is a beautiful thing. I don't think COVID or any specific circumstance led me to take the non-linear path. I do think that seeing your father, seeing other mentors talk about it and see them do something similar helped me a little bit, but I was still really, really nervous about it. I think what it came down to for me and my wife was, even though it probably made no sense, right? It probably makes no sense that I had a good job. I was living in the place I wanted to live, to raise my family. I've had, opportunities and good mentors in the place that I was working, and upward movement or ability to change jobs. Like there was so much in front of me. So in that sense, I don't think it made sense on a career sense. But when speaking about with my wife, we said to ourselves, in 40 years from now, what are we going to regret more? And we felt like missing out on this opportunity for us and our family, and to get back to the Jewish people was too much for us to miss out. And we didn't think the downside was catastrophic. We just had faith that Baruch Hashem and Mir Hashem, we'd be able to figure it out and work it out. After speaking to a couple of people, I felt like it was possible. It wasn't impossible that I would come back to Israel, and people were like, no, you're a non-for-profit. You're a Torah educator. Sorry, tech is close to you. I don't think I hope that's not going to be the case. And based on speaking to people before I left, I don't think that will be the case. But it's something that I'm definitely nervous about. And that's something that I've been thinking about since we left. But at the end of the day, we said to ourselves, 4 years of working in the tech world, amazing, do beautiful things, especially at our crowd, really hopefully changing the world for better. But at the same time, we think we can really make a difference here. And we go up to Shemaim, and we go up in 40 years, we can have this experience. And I think that was something that really pushed us forward.
Mm-hmm. So we've touched a few times on your various experiences related to the current historical times that we're living in, the challenging times that we're living in as a Jewish people, still at war, after nearing the 3-year mark at this point. So Shlomo, maybe you can just take us back to that October 9th experience. October 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in your life was a very, very, massive transition, along with the traumatic events that the entire nation was going through. So maybe you can take us through those sort of precious and challenging moments?
So this is a pretty emotional thing to speak about. And to be honest, yeah, it's something that I still have a lot of possible regret and guilt over. My wife and I accepted the job in late August to start WASH UJLIC, but our daughter at that time was born 3 months earlier. I had not met my family in Chicago or Kira's extended family in New York. So we went and approached the OU and said we would like to spend at least the beginning of the school year in America, just in Chicago and in New York. So we actually were in New York for Simchas Torah, for Sukkot and Simchas Torah. And obviously we heard the news like everyone else did, kind of trickling in, not understanding kind of what was happening, being really confused. I'm in a Miluim that's pretty active on the Gaza border, 8208, and I figured that something must have happened. So I actually, I guess, paskined for myself, but every moon paskins that it's a day and a half for shlichim, no matter how long you're going to be. So after Yontif, the first day, I decided I could turn on my phone and check, and obviously I saw everything that was happening, and I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know if I should get on a plane. They were chartering planes for Miluim soldiers. I didn't know if I should leave my family in New York. I didn't know if we should continue going to St. Louis. I didn't really have anyone to ask. I didn't really know what to do. No one was getting Savim, so it's not, I didn't even get Sav Shmona, but I saw my WhatsApp group of Miluim and everyone's going. And me and my wife had a decision to make. Am I leaving to go on a plane back to Israel like so many others did? Or am I staying in America? And are we starting this job in St. Louis? All of our stuff was in this house in St. Louis that we shipped there. Hadn't really seen the house yet. I had a 5-month-old at home and we didn't know what to do. So I actually texted my mifaked saying, hey, I'm here. What do you think I should do? Do you need me? And he actually responded back that, no, you should stay. We're good. Don't worry. He put it as, you're doing Avodat Kodesh. You should stay. My commander also isn't Jewish, by the way. Just a crazy thing to think about. And he told me I should
he's
stay.
what?
He's not Jewish. Like an AOUD. His name is Liran. He's an amazing guy, but not Jewish, but obviously
Like
grew up
from
in
a
Israel.
Russian, just for the listeners, like a Russian
Yeah,
background.
a Russian guy. Amazing mock, amazing commander. And he told me to stay. That was very, very difficult. When you're in the army, the worst thing to be when you're going on one of these asot, like these long walks, is to be the guy on the alunka, to be the guy on the stretcher where you're being carried by your friends. And I have felt that I've been being carried by my friends for the past 3 years. We also lost a lot of soldiers in our unit in one day a couple years ago. So that adds on to, again, obviously I wouldn't have changed that, but it adds on to the guilt and hardship of not being there to this day. And I don't know if I made the right decision. We ended up going to St. Louis. We ended up staying here. And I have not gone back from Miluim. And it's something that I don't know if that was the right decision or right call. It's something that I think will stay with me for forever, of not knowing if I did the right thing. And yeah, I have a lot of regret and guilt about it, but I hope I made the right decision. I hope it's what Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted for me. It was also very difficult because there was no one I can go to who would understand the situation that I'm in. And there was no one who was going to be able to answer their phone, because who am I going to call in Israel? No one's answering their phone in Israel. Everyone's going to be Miluim. None of my Rabbanim are going to answer their phone. And no one in America would understand. So I very much felt at that point, like no one really understood me and my situation and my decision to make. It was very individual. And that was also really scary, that I was kind of making a decision that I would say is life altering in a real way for your family and for you. And it's something that I think about every day. Something that a pasuk that kind of helps me a little bit is the idea of Ana Hashem ki ani avdecha, and how it's in Hallel, it's spelled differently than normal. And the Rebbe Milubavitch and others explain they could also be asking Kadosh Baruch Hu, where should I go? And I think I was very much asking Kadosh Baruch Hu just kind of to guide me into where I should be. Should I be here? Should I be in Israel? But I guess I'll find out May of Esrim if I made the right call. But it's something that is very, very difficult, but gave us a little bit of was when we got here October 9th, we reached out to our student. We didn't meet any of our students yet. We haven't met anybody yet. We had a WhatsApp group. We had people join, and we invited everyone to our house. We landed at 3:00. We invited everyone to our house for Mincha, Tehillim, some singing Mariv at our house at 6:00. So 50 students came to a house that we didn't realize had no electricity, and we had no chairs or AC. And it was St. Louis in October isn't chilly, but everyone sat on the floor in the dark, and we just cried and sang together. And I think that gave us a little bit of nechama that at least we're doing something, hopefully, that matters. I guess my concern is that, and the analogy I give to people when I speak about this is, if chas v'shalom someone in their family, is very sick, and you are in a place where you're not able to visit or not be around them and take care of them, and that could be for years at a time, and then you come back and everything's different, everything's changed because your family went through something that you would only understand if you were there. And I think that's a big fear of mine, is that the home that we thought we had is going to be a very different home that we return to, and that we're suddenly going to be zarim b'medina shelanu. We're going to be strangers in our land. And I think that's something that scares me to this day. But hopefully, again, like I said, hopefully we made the right decision, or I made the best decision possible. And Mekadosh Baruch Hu understands that. And we go from there.
So, I mean, thank you for sharing that, and it's obviously an intense memory, and it's just interesting to reflect on the fact that a lot of this podcast is about struggling with decisions that are both good and both important and both valuable, and also that sense of loneliness that everyone's on their journey, and everyone sort of can oftentimes feel like, for various circumstances, is there really anyone who understands this particular set of decisions that I need to make? So there's like a theme that in a much lower temperature is something that we talk about a lot, and hearing it in such a very strong way is very, very special. And I think it's a whole, maybe another conversation to talk about how we think about our past and remember our past, and to go and deal with regret. These are emotions that we talk about a little bit in the podcast, but I think it's a very important one, because our life is full of decisions, and we are the sum of all these decisions, and our decisions lead us to where we are today. So it's a fascinating topic. So thank you for sharing that. So Ami, I want to bring it over to you as we sort of wind down. You have a different sort of a war experience insofar as you've been back from Miluim one time or a few times. I think you're telling me about some Stark thing you were listening to. I don't know if it was here or there. So I'm curious, like, again, you're going to sort of to flip it the other way. You're going to do shlichut. You're going for a job for Mizrachi Israel, and then you get called to leave that post, leave your family, or I don't know if they came to visit in Israel or whatever it was, and then come back and go to Lebanon and fight there. So was that something that you also were not sure about and trying to figure out what the right thing to do was?
100%. And when I'm sharing my story, I don't want to by any chance belittle the experience that Shlomo went through, because every situation is unique, and it did work out in my situation. And for me, I thought it was the right decision. So just for context, before that, before I came on Shlichut, I'd already done 4 or 5 rounds of Miluim, and coming on Shlichut. And I want to just add that it was the biggest suit of my life to be able to be in the army in this time and protecting Israel over the past 2.5 years has been such an unbelievable zchut. My grandfather actually just passed away at 97 years old. He was a Holocaust survivor. His entire family was killed in Auschwitz, and he lived through everything. And he was able to get to the state of Israel as a 14-year-old and go on and fight in Milchemet Atzmaut. And coming from someone who was there when the Jewish people were defenseless to being able to protect our land and really help build it up is an extremely big zchut. So it's something I really don't take for granted, the zchut of being able to serve in the IDF. And I think another point here is that when we moved to Canada on shlichut, we were coming here as shlichim. Our home is in Israel. We just feel like we're here temporarily in Canada, representing Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael in Canada and bringing that message. So I still felt like I had that responsibility to go back and do Miluim when called to do that. When called to do so, I will say it's obviously hard, and especially I also think my situation is a bit different than Shlomo's. When Shlomo is the hub of everything that has to do with what he's doing. Thank God I'm in a much more structured community that is able to move on without me. And that doesn't mean it's simple. I have communal responsibilities. I have family responsibilities. And thank God everyone was understanding and able to make it work. So I was able to go for around the Miluim this past Pesach, spend it in Lebanon. I will also say that part of the tension there is I did a much shorter round than the rest of my machlaka, because I was only there technically over my break over Pesach, a bit before and a bit after. But my sevev, my round of Miluim, actually went on for another month and a half after that. But I had to come back to my communal responsibilities. So that kind of was my story of going on shlichut from here. I will say that I went purely for the sake of protecting Am Yisrael, but there is a lot of positive that comes to the shlichut when you go to Miluim on shlichut. I will say that someone in the shul that I'm pretty involved in here told me that this was actually the first time in 2.5 years, that he felt a real connection to what was going on in Israel. He said, this is the first time I actually knew someone that was fighting in the war. And it was someone from a community, say slightly more to the right of me, that just didn't have that personal connection, and they invited me to speak in their minyan, and they wanted me to share their experience. They wanted to feel that. So I think that is an additional element of the shlichut that I'm trying to bring, and the connection to what's happening in Israel. So I think that actually served me in that purpose.
Interesting. Yeah, really special to hear, and I really want to publicly acknowledge what I think is very special decisions and service that both of you guys are doing, both in your own way, and I want to thank you guys publicly for that. So let's go to our lightning round. We have 3 short questions, 3 hopefully short answers, and you guys both need to answer, so we'll have to do it really quickly. So we're in the summer. We have nice long Shabbat afternoons. It's probably a lot even longer in North America and in Canada than it is here. So what do you guys do? What do you guys like to do at that time?
Generally, I'm setting up for Shalshis to be hosted in our home for 70 students. But if we're lucky, let's say we're off like this right now, try to hang out with my children, maybe read, take a little bit of a nap. One of those 3 things.
Yeah, I'll go with the same. Sometimes we have some communal responsibilities Shabbat afternoon, but generally I'm with my family and my kids, spending some time together, sometimes learning Parsha or Nach together. That's what we like to do.
So what's your favorite sefer on Parshat Shavua? And specifically, if there's something that has a specific connection or, I guess, quote-unquote, utility and usefulness for your Shlichut Torah and your Shlichut identity and role, I'd love to hear that as well. So, Ami, let's start with you.
I don't want to make this too much about your family, but my favorite is the Shalom Rav on the Parsha.
I would say for me, probably it's going to be Drash Moshe or Yaakov on the Parsha.
Fascinating. And finally, if you guys were forced to quit all the jobs that you're doing now, all the tech work that you've done, find some totally new job, totally new industry, maybe something you dreamed of doing as a kid, what would that be? Shlomo, let's go to you.
Anything to do with sports. So general manager of the Chicago Bears, general manager of the Chicago Bulls, general manager of the Chicago White Sox, general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll go for any of those things. It would work for me.
As long as they stay in Chicago. Ami, go ahead.
I am a big sports guy. I appreciate that too. I think I'd want to be a farmer. Try out being a farmer.
All right, maybe you got to
So
come and live a
Kiva.
bit in Tsarim, and we can set you up for that very easily.
Amazing.
All right, Shlomo, Ami, thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for your Shlichut, and we look forward to seeing you back here, getting together back in Eretz Yisrael, and looking forward to seeing the next steps in your guys' journey. So until now, take care and stay safe.
Thank you,
so much.
Yaakov. Thank you for the zuchos. Appreciate it.